The rain had been falling for hours when Officer Grant parked his cruiser by the old Miller farmhouse. The property had been abandoned for more than a decade, its windows boarded, its walls crawling with ivy. But today wasn't routine patrol, it was a search operation. The department's K-9 unit had been assigned to help investigate a missing person case from 2008 that had suddenly resurfaced after an anonymous tip. Grant's partner, a sleek German shepherd named Rex, leapt out of the car, his nose twitching with instinct and purpose. Something about the stillness of the land felt wrong, as if time itself had frozen the horrors buried beneath. Grant had worked hundreds of scenes before, but there was something haunting about this one. The moment he stepped onto the muddy field, the silence pressed against his ears. Only the rhythmic breathing of Rex and the sound of raindrops breaking puddles filled the void. The farmhouse loomed ahead like a ghost watching its own grave. Grant adjusted his flashlight, scanning the faded "Keep Out" sign that hung crooked on the fence. He whispered softly, "Easy, boy, take it slow," and Rex responded with a low, cautious growl, tail stiff, senses alive. The investigation team spread out. A few officers began searching the barn while others examined the perimeter. Grant and Rex followed a narrow path leading behind the farmhouse where weeds grew as tall as a man. Suddenly, Rex halted, head lowered, ears pricked forward. He began circling a patch of ground near an old oak tree, pawing furiously at the dirt. Grant's heart thudded. "You got something," he muttered. Rex barked twice, a signal they both knew well. Within seconds, Grant was on his radio calling the forensic team. Whatever was under that ground had waited 17 long years to be found. When the soil was turned, a heavy silence fell. The unearthed object wasn't large, but its meaning was devastating. A child's shoe, faded pink, wrapped inside a decaying plastic bag. Even after years underground, the innocence it represented screamed louder than any words could. Grant swallowed hard, feeling his throat tighten. He'd seen death, he'd seen loss, but there was something about children that broke him every time. The case they'd reopened had been about a missing 9-year-old girl named Emily Parker. Her disappearance had torn the small town apart, and the trail had gone cold after just 3 months. The news spread fast. Within hours, the entire department was buzzing. Old detectives who had retired called in, shocked. Emily's parents, now grey-haired and fragile, were notified. The hope that had died 17 years ago was being resurrected, but with it came fear of learning the truth they'd prayed would never come. Grant watched as forensic officers worked under floodlights, documenting every inch of the site. Rex sat beside him, alert but strangely uneasy, his eyes locked on the dark edge of the woods beyond the property. It was as if he sensed something that no one else could. That night, Grant couldn't sleep. The image of the shoe kept flashing in his mind. He dug through the old case files that had been reopened, reports, witness statements, the desperate interviews from 2008. He found a faded photo of Emily, smiling, holding a golden retriever puppy in her arms. She'd loved animals, her parents had said. She used to play by the very oak tree where the shoe was found. Grant leaned back, staring at the photo. "We are going to find who did this, kid," he whispered to the empty room. In the corner, Rex stirred in his bed, growling low, as if dreaming of the same promise. The next morning, the dig continued. This time, Rex's behavior changed. He wasn't just tracking a scent, he was hunting something unseen. His ears twitched at the faintest sound, his body tense like a coiled spring. When Grant gave the command, Rex darted toward the barn, nose to the ground, barking sharply. The officers followed, hearts pounding. The barn door creaked open, revealing darkness thick with dust and decay. Then, Rex froze, head tilted, staring at a pile of old wooden crates. Grant approached carefully, flashlight trembling in his hand. He didn't know it yet, but what lay beneath those crates would turn the case into something far darker. They moved the crates one by one until they uncovered an old metal box, rusted and locked. Grant pried it open with his knife, the hinges groaning. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, each one showing children smiling in the same meadow, always with the same oak tree in the background. But one detail sent chills through Grant's veins. In every photo, a tall man stood behind the children, his face always half hidden in shadow. The date stamps on the pictures ranged from 2003 to 2008, the very year Emily disappeared. Grant felt his stomach drop. This wasn't random. It was ritual. As evidence piled up, Grant started piecing together patterns. The man in the photos had to be connected to the farmhouse. Property records revealed that before it was abandoned, It belonged to a man named Leonard Briggs, a local handyman who'd vanished around the same time Emily did. Neighbors had described him as quiet but too friendly with children. No one had ever found him. No body, no trace. Grant's instincts screamed that this was no coincidence. Somewhere in those woods or under that dirt lay the truth, and Rex was the only one who could uncover it. Late that evening, Rex began pacing near the same oak tree again, whining softly, digging at the ground despite the officer's attempts to pull him back. Grant let him work. "Go on, boy. Show me." Within minutes, Rex's paws hit something hard, another buried object. When they cleared the soil, Grant froze. It wasn't a toy or a shoe this time. It was a small locket, its metal dull with age, but inside was a picture, Emily's mother holding a newborn baby. Etched on the back were the words, "For my angel, Emily." The case had just become more. Grant turned the locket over in his hand, the engraved words cutting into his heart like a blade. He looked up at the night sky where lightning flashed behind dark clouds, illuminating the oak tree's long, crooked limbs. 17 years, he whispered, and you've been waiting right here. The thought made him shudder. How many times had people walked past this land without knowing the truth buried beneath? He placed the locket gently in a forensic bag while Rex sat beside him, silent now, eyes glinting as if he understood the weight of what they'd found. The bond between them had always been strong, but tonight, it felt unbreakable. The next day, Grant met Emily's mother, Susan Parker, at the station. She looked fragile, her hands trembling as she held the locket he'd returned to her. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. "This was hers," she whispered. "I gave it to her on her 9th birthday. She never took it off." Grant felt his throat tighten. He wanted to promise her justice, but the truth was, they still had more questions than answers. "We are not stopping," he said softly. "Rex found this. He's not done yet." Susan looked up, her eyes searching his. "Then please," she said, "find my baby." Later that afternoon, the forensics team uncovered something that froze everyone on site. Beneath the oak's roots, several feet deeper than where the shoe had been, they found bones, small, delicate, unmistakably human. The air grew thick with sorrow. Grant stepped back, his pulse racing as the medical examiner confirmed what everyone already feared. "It's consistent with a child around 9 years old," she said quietly. Grant turned away, clenching his jaw. Rex whimpered, pressing against his leg, sensing the sadness that words could never express. After all these years, Emily Parker had finally been found, but the question of who had taken her life remained a black hole. When the autopsy report arrived, it revealed something unexpected. There were traces of a sedative in the remains, one that had been commonly used in veterinary practices 2 decades ago. That detail hit Grant like a storm. "Veterinary sedative," he muttered, pulling the old files again. And there it was. Leonard Briggs, the handyman who'd owned the farmhouse, had once worked part-time at a local animal clinic. It was no longer speculation. It was connection. Grant slammed the file shut and grabbed his keys. "Come on, Rex," he said. "We are going for a drive." The animal clinic had changed ownership twice since Briggs disappeared, but the basement archives still held decades of records. Dust filled the air as Grant flipped through old appointment logs, his flashlight cutting across faded ink and yellowed paper. Then he found it, Leonard Briggs' signature, written neatly on supply orders for sedatives, dated just weeks before Emily went missing. "Gotcha," Grant breathed. But as he turned to leave, Rex began growling, low and deep, directed toward a locked storage room at the back. The hairs on Grant's arms rose. "What is it, boy?" He unlocked the door slowly, and froze. Inside the room were boxes, stacked floor to ceiling, filled with old film reels, toys, and worn-out stuffed animals. Every item was tagged with a name: Emily, Sarah, Kevin, Lila, all children who had gone missing between 2003 and 2008. Grant's heart pounded as he realized they were all connected. "Dear God," he whispered. It wasn't one case. It was a pattern of horrors stretching across years. And Leonard Briggs hadn't been just a handyman. He had been a collector. The cold case that began with one missing girl had just opened a doorway into something monstrous. That night, back at the station, Grant pinned every victim's photo on the board. The faces stared back at him, innocent, smiling, forever frozen in time. "Why here? Why them?" he murmured. Rex lay near his desk, restless, occasionally lifting his head as if sensing Grant's frustration. Then Grant noticed something strange. In the corner of each photo, the same barn from the Miller property appeared faintly in the background. It wasn't just where Briggs lived. It was his hunting ground. Grant's fists clenched. "We are going back," he said quietly. Rex's ears perked up instantly, ready for whatever came next. When they reached the farmhouse again, the night was eerily calm. Fog rolled through the fields, wrapping the trees in ghostly silence. Grant felt his pulse quicken as he entered the barn once more. He could feel something, a presence, maybe memory, lingering in the air. Rex moved ahead, nose to the floor, sniffing with sharp precision. Suddenly, he stopped and barked 3 times, digging at the dirt near the back wall. Grant knelt beside him, his flashlight trembling. The ground was loose. He began to dig with his hands until he uncovered something metallic, a keyring, rusty but intact, with a tag that read Storage 17. Grant frowned, wiping mud from the tag. The number felt oddly familiar. He flipped through his notes until he found it, one of Briggs's storage units, rented under a false name, number 17. "Of course," he whispered. "That's where you hid the rest." Without wasting another second, he radioed for backup and drove straight to the old storage facility on the edge of town. The gate was half collapsed, the sign faded. Rex barked sharply as if urging him to hurry. The padlock on Unit 17 was old but still sealed tight. Grant broke it open, swung the door upward, and what they found inside made even the veteran officers step back in disbelief. Grant's adrenaline surged as Rex dragged him toward the edge of the storage facility. The German Shepherd's instincts were in overdrive, barking into the night like he could smell the past itself. They followed muddy footprints that disappeared into the woods behind the complex. The beam of Grant's flashlight wavered as branches whipped across his arms. The trail was fresh. Whoever had been inside that unit had fled only moments before. Grant tightened his grip on the leash. "Easy, boy. Steady," he whispered, though his own pulse raced wildly. Somewhere ahead, hidden among the trees, the man who had stolen 17 years of peace was watching them. The forest swallowed sound, each step muffled by damp leaves. Rex's movements grew sharper, faster, until suddenly, he stopped. A low growl rumbled from his chest, his eyes locked on an abandoned cabin barely visible through the mist. The roof sagged, the windows shattered, but faint light flickered inside. Grant moved closer, hand on his weapon. He knew this was it. The end of a nightmare. He signaled for backup, but before they could arrive, a shadow moved past the broken glass. Then, a voice, cracked, trembling, echoed out. "I knew they'd send you eventually." The door creaked open, and a thin, grey-haired man stepped into view. Leonard Briggs. Alive. Time had carved deep lines into his face, but his eyes burned with a strange calm. "You shouldn't have come," he said, his tone eerily quiet. Grant raised his gun. 17 years. Briggs. "You think you'd get away with it?" Briggs smiled faintly. "Get away? No. I've been waiting. You brought the dog. The same kind of dog she loved." His gaze shifted to Rex, and something inside Grant snapped. "You don't say her name," he barked. "Not one word." But Briggs only shook his head slowly. "She wanted to leave," he murmured. "They all did. I just kept them safe from the world." Grant felt the bile rise in his throat. The monster didn't even believe he was evil. The last entry in Grant's report read simply, "Case closed. All victims identified. Perpetrator in custody. Credit to Canine Rex for his unmatched instinct, courage, and heart." No medals, no fame, no ceremony could match that line. Because, in truth, heroes don't always wear uniforms or badges. Sometimes, they walk on 4 legs, guided only by loyalty and love. And somewhere in the quiet fields of a small town, a German shepherd raised his head to the morning sun, his mission complete. If you felt the heartbeat of this story, the pain, the hope, the courage, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true and emotional stories of bravery, loyalty, and the unspoken bond between humans and their dogs. Paw Print Sparkles.